Okay, thanks for tuning in to Old College Try, the podcast. Today, Peggy and I, Peggy Keough, the fairy godmother of financial aid, and myself, Matt Carpenter, we're focusing on early decision acceptances, early decision wait lists, and deferred, but we spend the most time talking about what if your kid doesn't get into your dream school? What are some kind of best practices? What are some personal experiences that Peggy and I have had? I think it's an important conversation. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as we did. Thank you. You keep lying around. Okay, Peggy, second to last podcast of 2025 here, as we're coming up against it. So I think it's been a fun first year, right? What do you think?
Yeah. And before we go any further, we have to say happy birthday.
Jeez.
What number is it? You have to
44. Yeah, 44. Fours. 44. Yep, fours like Bobby Orr. Who's a 44? Marion Butts 44. Some good 44s out there. Yeah, I like it. Clean number. I always liked 4. That used to be my favorite number initially. So yeah, here we are, Peggy. And like I said, we're either going to go to the local establishment tonight or we're just going to stay home and play Clue around the Christmas tree. I don't know. And we got to light the Hanukkah candle tonight, third night of Hanukkah. So
Yep.
So we'll have some fun either way. And I believe I'm up on tunes, if I'm not
You are.
mistaken. Is that right? Yeah. So this is not off the beaten path. I think this is closer to the beaten path. Okay, Peggy. So drum roll for today's featured artists and a couple songs in particular. Featured artist is Neil Young. Neil Young, he was a staple in my house growing up, right? Deadhead parents, specifically my dad, but Neil Young right in lockstep. With that, I've continued that tradition. He's a staple on my Sunday morning playlist, which I think I'm going to share my Sunday morning playlist in the show notes. But Old Man, that's the song that got me hooked in particular. Razor Love is another friggin' beautiful song that not less known, Neil. And then the last one I'll give is Believer. That's a fun one too. So, and again, kind of less known in the Neil catalog. So Peggy, Neil Young, are you a fan?
Oh, I love Neil Young. Actually, when I taught myself to play guitar, that's how I did it.
Oh,
I had my little Neil Young songbook, and so I knew the song. So I was like, nope, didn't play that chord right because that doesn't sound right. That's kind of how I taught myself. No, I love Neil Young. Yeah.
Pretty good guitarist as well there. So,
Yep.
all right. So go, if you listen to Neil, gives you an excuse to listen to more. If you don't, please, even though, you said Bob Dylan last week. Another one of these guys was kind of unique voices, beautiful in their own right to those of us that like them, but I can see where it's not for everybody, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we want to talk about today, we're going to, again, given the time of year, given the calendar, early action decisions have just started kind of flooding in, right? Hey, you got in or you didn't, or somewhere in the middle. And then here's what we're doing financially. This is what's happening between about mid-December and mid-January. All these early college applications come back again with in most cases, both the admissions and kind of comprehensive financial decisions. So we just kind of want to walk through each one and best practices. Where we're going to spend the most time today is when we don't get the desired result. I think it's just important to have that conversation. It's a really, I think, big challenge for most families when you don't get into that, dream school or top school or whatever. So we just want to talk about that because we have some opinions. And again, we've been around the block a few times, and I think there are some best practices and lessons, and hopefully something you all can, utilize if that happens, right? Or we should say in life when that happens, right? Because if we don't get rejected here, we're going to at some point, right? So, and again, I think some of these, I don't know, best practices might be useful with any type of disappointment, adversity, etc. So Peggy, just remind us just kind of the differences, early action, early decision, regular decision, and kind of timelines. Just start with the very basics.
Yeah. And we've talked about this in depth. So this is just a quick overview. So early decision, binding, those are the ones that are ED1. There's 2 different versions now, are the ones that are coming back now. We have some kids that we're working with, families we're already hearing back, and they're already starting to appeal stuff. And then early action, same thing. I don't know how many early actions are coming through now, but they will be soon. So that's an earlier deadline, not binding. Of course, there's rolling. So some state schools, you just submit and you hear 3 weeks later. I remember when I was a senior in high school, I got into Purdue in September, and I was like, "Okay, I'm done for the year." So those just come as the school has the time to review them, and then regular decisions. So that's the one that you don't hear back till March, beginning of April. So that's the one
Right.
that you're waiting on. So those are the timelines, but like Matt said, they're coming in now, so we wanted to talk about actually our social media guru, Kathy Portley, who can't be on today. I asked her to be on, but she had a conflict. I asked her, like, what is going on? She's like, I'm hearing this all over social media that people, my kid didn't get in, and what do we do wrong, and all this stuff. So that's
Wow.
what kind of sparked this was her suggestion. Hey, you guys should talk about this. And I think it's going to be super fun because I've been through this times two, and I just love talking about mindset and stuff,
Right.
anyways. So it's kind of funny. We're not talking numbers today as
Mhm.
much as we usually do, but it's all part of
Yeah, I mean, the emotional, psychological part of, this college process is just in lockstep with the numbers and the X's and O's. And so it's like I think it's important that, occasionally, our focus is usually more on the numbers and, getting in the weeds with formulas and things like this. But I think we would be doing folks a disservice if we didn't spend some time on the more, again, emotional, psychological components of this. So again, to your point, right? That's the real focus today. So let's start with the good stuff, right? We'll start with the good stuff. We'll kind of go green light, yellow light, red light, and again, we'll spend the most time on the red light here. But we get accepted, Peggy, whether it's early decision, whether it's early action, we get in. Now what? And let's actually to add on to that. Early, if we get accepted early action, in most cases, guys, we're not doing anything because we want to wait and see what all the offers look like, right? Even if we got accepted into our top choice, oftentimes we're going to say just sit tight because we might be able to create some leverage to get a better deal there. Not always, but oftentimes that's the appropriate strategy. But let's just say, Peggy, we got accepted early decision. Again, we told the school we're going there. If we get accepted, what do we do?
Yeah, so you have to look at your offer. That's from the financial aid office, the financial aid award letter. Make sure it's what you were expecting. You should have done your homework like we've talked about, so you know about what you should expect. Even if you get exactly what you thought you would get, in some instances, it still might make sense to reach out and appeal. Certain instances, you're not going to. If your child gets into Princeton and you're like, hey, where's the merit scholarship? You shouldn't appeal that. They don't do merit. But that's always the first thing to think about. Should I be appealing? And that's legit for an ED offer as well. So there's a really tight timeline. So you want to have, like we talked about, hopefully you have your ducks in a row. If your child got in, congrats. Now look at that award letter. Don't just send in that check. Look at the award letter and see if there's a conversation to be had. There's nothing to wait for. You got to jump in. Unlike EA, you're not waiting for other offers to come.
Yeah, and so I have a couple things to add there, right? But in total agreement. The first one is just a practical step. Specifically, I got this award letter. What do I do? Upload it to your MyCap account. If you don't have
Oh
a
yeah,
MyCap
yeah. Good
account,
call.
create a
Good
free
call.
one right now. Because the first thing is, you've heard us say this before, but these offers can be very freaking confusing, right? Peggy and I have seen tens of thousands of these. Every year, we get surprised, like, wait, I'm not even sure what the bottom line is here, right? And again, that's somebody that is seen just mountains of these different offers. Again, that seems like weird. Like, what are you talking about, Matt? Like, yeah, I get an offer and I can't really understand it. Trust me. Okay. Trust me. If you have an experience and if you're a parent that's been through this, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
What's going to be there for 4 years? Is this a 1 year deal? Am I paying this money back? Are they giving it to me? Right. So, anyways, upload it, mycap.collegeaidpro.com. Number one, we translate it. We just we take these confusing things and make it very simple to understand what you've been offered. More important than that, we evaluate it. Did you get a fair offer from Clark, from Dickinson, from Rice? You name the school because we're going to know here's what you should get. Okay, based on your family's profile, based on the school. And more often than not, we're going to say you should get a better deal, right? So take advantage of that. We are the third party watchdog there. As always, if you want to do anything beyond the free resources, College Try 15, use that coupon code. You can upgrade if you want to work with one of us to help you with the appeal, right? Again, that would be a good use of that coupon code. So that's kind of one practical step I have there. We're not taking the first offer, right? And this is what to do. Listen to last week's episode if you want us to get in the weeds with specifically with ED acceptances. Here's the other thing I just want to talk about, Peggy, and maybe it's more appropriate that we talk about this with denials, but whatever, here we are. I want everybody to just be conscientious of when your kid does get this great news, right? You got accepted, you guys are psyched out of your minds, and you should celebrate your butts off. It's an amazing accomplishment, right? It's a family accomplishment in a lot of ways. But just be sensitive to your peers, to your neighbors, to your classmates, right? That got kind of heartbroken in some ways, right? And I think especially social media, and again, this is a tricky one because I don't want to say, hey, you should celebrate that and celebrate your kid, but just know that your kid got in and somebody in their class might have got denied, and that was their top choice. So and if it was your kid, it would be hard for you, I think, to see some other. And of course, I'm especially talking about social media. Again, I'm not saying don't post or anything like that, and that's whatever, but just be conscientious of that. Because I know, again, talking to a lot of parents, they're like, it's one thing when we don't get in, it's another thing when we get it kind of thrown in our face a little bit. Not that people are doing it intentionally, but it's food for thought. And Peggy, I don't know if you have any
Yeah,
thoughts around that.
I'm not a big, and again, some of the stuff we're sharing today, these aren't facts. This is our opinion. So take it for what it is. I'm not
Yeah.
a huge put my whole life on social media. And what you're saying, Matt, is super, super valid. Also, I see people that are putting they're live streaming, looking at an email. Like, this is what we're going to talk about in a few minutes. That is just putting way too much emphasis on something that is really not that important, and it might not be what you want, and if it is, it's just kind of egg in the face of people that it is. I mean, you just want to think about it and put, in my opinion, that what happens to your child in this situation and the decisions they get, it's not making or breaking their life, and so you just want to keep that in mind. And we could do a podcast about social media and have an expert on here. That's not where we're going today, but that's my take on it, is just be careful with social media in general.
Yeah, a whole nother layer that we were fortunate enough to not have to contend with as we were going through this, right? I have so much like compassion and empathy for it's like kind of hard enough getting denied, but then to have all these other, whatever, strangers and everybody in your circle know that too. So, kind of, if you choose to share it publicly.
It's the same thing with everything in kids' lives now.
Yeah.
When I got rejected asking somebody to the prom, I just had to walk by them in homeroom because his last name was J and mine was K, but it wasn't like blasted everywhere.
I think I just lied, right? I just lied, and it was easy, and I don't know that you could get away with that anymore because it'd be like, okay, then show it. Show your acceptance letter to it's Colby College. I remember that I lied about. I said I chose not to go there. I chose not. I was told I'm not going there. So, anyways, that I don't know that I could get away with that. That was how I dealt with it.
Well, to each his own.
I don't think that's the appropriate response, right? If I could go back in time, I think I'd have a little. I'd like to.
Because it wasn't an indication of who you are. But that's what happens. Even at your age, it was still going on back then. And so that's something we're going to talk about, that it truly is not an indication of who you are as a person or a student or anything.
Well, I only care about the external validation, so that's why I was, that's something I still
A
struggle
whole
with.
other podcast.
That's something I still struggle with, Peggy. So so anyways, that I know that was the driving force in my in my lying for that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so so let's talk about this kind of yellow light here, right? And waitlisted, deferred, some similarities there, but just like talk to us about the terms first, and then what are the action items?
Yeah, so basically you can be deferred or you can be waitlisted. So deferred, like my son applied to BC early action and they deferred him. So they're saying, "Yeah, we'll still look at you with all the regular decision kids." So what I would say, the follow-up, and I don't know if I did not do this with my child way back when, but it is a good idea, if your child cares about this school, to reach out if there's accomplishments, anything new, even just to have your child reach out and say, "I'm so excited to come still. Is there anything else you need?" Just showing initiative and, yeah, I still want to go. I hear you. Waitlisting, the thing that's different there is you're literally put on a wait list. So with regular admission, they're saying no, but they're saying you're on this list. That's a whole podcast in and of itself of
Mhm.
the strategies that college, and we'll get some college people on here about how they create wait lists, what do they do? And we find our team of experts that it's different every year. It's not like every year Tulane uses a wait list this way.
Right.
So that's a whole nother quagmire. But with a wait list, you do want to tell the school, yeah, I want to be on the wait list so that they know you have interest. And then the same thing, follow up, just show that
Yeah.
initiative. And that's really on the student end because
That's
they,
right.
they want to feel like this kid is invested. We didn't say yes, but this kid really wants to come. So if we take them off the wait list, or when it comes time to look at the student with all the regular admit kids, wow, this kid has pinged us and this or that, and will probably come. Because remember how we talk about, they really care about butts in the seats at most schools in this country because they got to fill those seats. So a kid that's more likely to send a deposit check is going to get the yes before one that they haven't really heard from.
Yeah, 100%. And a couple thoughts, follow along thoughts there. Number one, the technical term for what you're talking about in terms of the student reaching out and saying like, "Hey, is there anything I can do to help my cause?" And here's what has happened since I demonstrated interest. Right, we've talked about it on this podcast. Mark Stucker came on and just whole podcast focused, on demonstrated interest. But that's what you're doing, and I'll show you some interesting, or I'll talk about a couple interesting, just kind of anecdotes here that we've seen over the last few years specifically at these really competitive institutions, not necessarily the Ivies of the world, but I'll use in my backyard here. We've seen this at Boston University and Northeastern. And again, colleges of the like across the country have done a similar practice where they get these really, really competitive applicants, these students with these, just very strong resumes and tangible scores in terms of GPAs, test scores, et cetera. Ones that we would typically project to get merit. Not only are you going to get in, we think you're going to get a scholarship. Okay. And they get waitlist or denied. And we're like, again, years ago, like, what the hell's going on here? And what we found out that oftentimes these types of schools, they have to make their best guesses in terms of like, well, if we accept this student and we give them X amount in scholarship, financial aid, et cetera, are they actually going to come? Right. This is the guessing game that kind of
Yes,
they
the
have to
butts
pay.
in the seats thing. Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. And so sometimes with like the top percentage of applicants, they're saying to themselves, we're this kid's safety school. And they're probably going to Princeton or Harvard or Dartmouth or whatever, you name it. And so we're going to either waitlist or defer them, right? Now, sometimes they miscalculate. And we've seen this where no, that is the kid's first choice, right? And it didn't come clear enough, during the application process. So we've seen cases where when the student follows up to say, "Hey, wait a minute, this is my first choice, and I'm kind of surprised given my, credentials here," and they say, "Oh, okay, never mind, you're accepted, and we're giving you a scholarship." Right? We've seen it happen, right, every year, more than once, certainly. So just keep that in mind if it feels like you're somebody that might be above what the averages show at a given school. Of course, that doesn't guarantee anything, but just keep that in mind because it's not something that is common knowledge by any stretch. To your point, Peggy, about wait lists and how they change each year, I don't think I'm wrong here, but I'm going off of memory where I believe it was last year. Just a ton of schools wait lists became a huge thing because people were trying to guess their yields with all these changes happening in the Department of Education, and a lot of them just missed, right? Miscalculated. Obviously, Syracuse being the biggest
Yeah,
one.
they were the
Like,
biggest one.
yeah, right. Even schools like Georgetown, I remember. And again, I could be misremembering that, but I really don't think I am. But some of these like really, really competitive schools that you think would never have to go to their wait lists, right? Or certainly not too deep in it. That was happening. So historically, I've kind of thought, and again, my anecdotal experience has been like deferment, wait lists, that's a death sentence, right? Whatever dramatic there, but that's a no, that's a delayed no. Especially in recent years, I think there's a little bit more reason for some optimism, right? I would still, on the whole, bet against it. If we're deferred or waitlisted, I'm pessimistic that it's going to go our way, but it's not dead, right? We're still
Yeah.
alive.
And all this conversation leads to, we've said this many times, but it bears repeating. These colleges and universities are businesses. They
Yeah.
function like businesses. That's why if you're emotionally into this, that's not how they're doing this. They truly are not. So you should not approach it that way because you're dealing with a business that's making a decision basically. And these Your anecdote is a perfect example. Like they're rejecting a kid or deferring that on paper is exactly what they want because they don't think the kid's going to come. That's a business decision. That's not an emotional decision. So if you can prepare yourself as a parent to approach it this way and to guide your kids from day one when you start talking about college in this way, it's going to make it much easier.
Yeah, this is I'm only talking to a very small percentage of the population here, but to that point around these colleges being businesses, I've also seen, many times when someone is waitlisted, if the family calls the school and says, "Hey, what if we withdrew our financial aid application? Would that change things in terms of our pecking order on the wait list?" Oftentimes the answer to that question is it sure would. Not always, not every school, but again, that's just a good example. And again, we've seen all the time be like, yeah, pull the application, you're in tomorrow. So
And we're
uh
not advocating for that. We're just
no, no, no,
sharing that,
absolutely not. Yeah, yeah,
you
and
know.
again, I'm only talking to a very small percentage of families that can say, "Yep, we'll just pay the 100 grand a year, not a problem," right? Or whatever the outrageous price point happens to be. Okay, Peggy, so the task at hand here, just talk me through your philosophy. I don't know, maybe as a parent, as a friend, as a whatever. Your kid is denied or their top choice. Just kind of talk me through your thought process, any guidance you can offer there for families that are going through that or are going to go through that.
I think the main to go even back, just like I kind of hinted a minute ago, the first thing as parents, as my mother pointed out to me a few times when my kids were little, Peg, you're the parent. Don't get on the ground and fight with your kid like you're a parent, right? And I'm speaking as a parent who's been through this. So you've got to figure out your mindset from the get-go. And you should not get overly invested in an outcome emotionally because your kids are going to feed off you. So if you get emotionally invested in a certain school, then they might get emotionally invested into not the school you're pushing because you're the parent, but you get where I'm going here because as we've said, they're businesses. You do not want to get emotionally invested. These are business decisions. It is not an indicator of how well you parented or raised your child, none of that. And it's not an indicator for your child of like what kind of student they are, how valid they are, all the things that they've done with their life so far, that those are meaningless and useless. None of that is true. I was at a conference pre-COVID. It was super cool. They broke us into groups and they said there was a guy from SMU, one of them, and he said, "Okay, you are admissions committees." And he broke us into groups of 3 or 4, and we went through it 3 times and he said, "Here's the application. You have 10 minutes. You tell me admit, deny, or wait list. 10 minutes." So we did it and then we talked as a group. Then he said, "You have 8 minutes." And then he said, "You have 6 minutes." And we did 3 of them. And then we talked as a group of what we thought. And then he said what they did and why. I mean, it was fascinating. So the point I'm making is this is what the colleges do. They all have their different ways of making these decisions, but they're not spending hours and hours on these applications. So you have to realize that none of these decisions are based on the worth of your child. And you've got to keep reinforcing that. Because, like Matt said,
Well,
on social media in general, even not linked to college, people are seeing so many things. It's causing mental illness for my age, Matt's age. It's not just your kid's age because people see it like, I can't go there. I don't have that. None of that. You have to be that grounding force, or I should say, you get to be in your household so that you can counteract what's happening all the time. And then you have to feel it in your heart. That's the other thing. And this is the way I approached it. If you've listened to some of the stuff I talk about, I kind of have this thrive. I have it. It's not kind of this thrive factor. You got to find where your child's going to thrive and they get to find that. It's not about, they might have an idea of why they want to go somewhere that isn't even it doesn't matter. Like my daughter, when we sent her the big book, we gave her the big book and said, "Tell us what your thoughts are." After she circled for Syracuse, it's cold and they have a tennis bubble because she played varsity tennis. She's a 17-year-old. Like that's her mindset. So you also have to realize your kids are young. They've got their whole world. I know I'm going on a rant, but I really believe this strongly that mindset really matters. But I will say when they get a deny, because if they're applying to super competitive schools, odds are in their favor to get a deny. And this is what Kathy told me. It's all over social media. What do we do wrong? My child works so hard. This isn't fair. First of all, life isn't fair. So if your child hasn't learned that yet, it's a good thing for them to learn it on, right? It's going to get way higher stakes when they're older and they have kids and shit happens, as I used to tell my
Yeah.
kids, right? And your kids, and this is my opinion, and I might ruffle some feathers, I hate the word deserve because I don't think anybody deserves anything. You work really hard, and sometimes you get what you're working for. Sometimes you don't, and you get up the next day and you say, I'm moving forward. That's what matters, like how you respond to a setback, not really react, but more respond. And like this is a great life lesson for kids. So I'm hoping none of your kids get denied, but when they do, or if they do, it's actually, I mean, glass half full. It's not a negative, right? It's a way for them to accept something that they really had very little control over. They worked hard for 4 years. They're involved in what they're involved in, but it's like, move on. Like that's kind I know it's easier said than done, but if any of those little morsels help you and any of that resonates for you, that you can take that, jot it down, and help you navigate this with your child. If you have a senior and you're waiting for these, or you have a freshman and you're starting, set the groundwork. So I know that was a super long diatribe on that, but obviously I'm passionate about it.
I didn't want to break in, Peggy. Yeah, and I'll piggyback on a couple of your thoughts there, and then I'll just talk a little bit about my personal experience around this, and I don't know, see where it takes us, I guess. But I mean, the first one is right. What I hear all the time, especially from these people that are really passionate about education, work so freaking hard, and we're really trying for these, schools that are so stinging difficult to get into, is what more could we have done, right? And my answer is always nothing.
Exactly.
They did everything they could do. It is not fair, to your point, right? That thing, like, of course it's not fair, right? Like, it's like all they can do is everything that they can do. They did, right? They did, and they still didn't get what they wanted, right? And that sucks. That hurts. Like I do not deal well with a rejection at all. So I really understand that, right? And I'm hyper competitive. I always take it personal. So it's like I have a ton of appreciation for that, right? And I think, right, as you were talking, I'm doing kind of thinking about my own experience a little bit. Like, I think both of my parents, if they could go back in time, would try to change some things about living a little bit vicariously through me. My dad did it in sports. I think my mother, so like academically, I think it was important for her. Like, and we've had these honest conversations to kind of like, especially with her sisters, right? She's one of seven. Her and her sisters are very close, but they're also like competitive with each other, right? And so I think a big thing was like, oh, see how good of a parent is. Look at what school my son's going into, right? Like the example I used, the first, and I don't think there was anything like malicious by any stretch, but like the first campus my mother took me to was Princeton, Peggy, right? And I'm not Princeton material bed, you know? Like it never was. And God bless my mom. Like I think she actually think I would like get in there because I'm her sweet boy or something, right?
Of
So
course you did.
yeah, but so again, I think probably as parents we want to be cognizant of that, of like how much is my kind of wishes for probably healthy reasons creeping its way into my kid's psyche, right? Just probably something to check. And and I think what I've done is almost like swung the opposite end of the spectrum, right? I'm like just like, Emma, you don't have to do your homework, I didn't. So I gotta. That's my work.
That
Yeah, that's my work with Emma. I gotta yeah, again, figure out how that
yeah.
spectrum or that pendulum doesn't swing too far to the other side. But yeah, I just think it's and the other thing here, and this doesn't make it, I don't think any easier in the moment, but what we all know as having lived more life than these 17 and 18-year-olds is most of these cliches are true. And like adversity does make us better. And these rejections and failures are what catapult us forward in life. Again, that doesn't necessarily help at the time when you're in the shit, fucking feeling it, right? Feeling the rejection and pain and it's not fair and blah, blah, blah. But that's all true. Right. And the other thing I will share, and again, specifically, I thought Boston College was my first choice, rejected. I think Colby was my second choice. And I really thought I was going to get in there because I was being recruited somewhat aggressively for football, rejected. And that hurt on both the academic and athletic front. Cause I think if the coach really wanted me, he probably could have got me in there type of deal. So I'm like, fuck, I'm not that good. Right. So, And I didn't really want to go to Stonehill, right? And I did, and so much of that was because going into this, caring about external validation is I didn't think it was enough of a brand name that people would think I'm good enough type of deal, right? But that's where I met all my best friends. We've all been in each other's weddings. We're all each other's, godparents to one another's kids. My wife studied abroad at Stonehill. So many of the best things that happened in my life, I am just like so unbelievably grateful for how it played out. Right. Like the closest people to me in my life, just about all of them, or so many of them, I can, trace back
Meet
to
me at Stonehill, but besides me.
besides you, Peggy, but somehow Stonehill was catapulted us to crossing paths, right? So somewhere there, it deserves some credit. But
It's funny for me to share my story because my story was grew up in a family, Notre Dame, down to like if you follow sports, I'm related to Elmer Layden, one of the Four Horsemen, like huge Notre Dame family. But it was never all my siblings went. My brother was older, he was there. It wasn't the right place for me. I even looked at St. Mary's just to try it. I was like, oh, Dad, I just can't do this. There was no pressure. There was never any pressure to go to Notre Dame. And so I did. And I had applied to a ton of state schools because of what I wanted to study and was agriculture. That's another podcast, how I'm a financial planner, but that's just me. And then all of a sudden Cornell popped up. Like I didn't even know about it. I was like, oh, best ag school in the country. I'm an achiever. Got to apply. And my parents literally said to me, you're never going to get in. We are not taking the 4-hour drive. It was a 4-hour drive from Jersey to visit. So I was like, all right. Again, look at my parents, not emotionally invested, telling me you're not going to get in, not you're a bad kid. I was an achiever. You're just not going to get in. I was like, yeah, probably valid. And then I get in, right? And so it wasn't tied to my net worth. I went because it was the best school in the country. And to me, that was what you should do, not because it was an Ivy. If it was Madison, Wisconsin, which is where I was going to go, I would have gone there. If it was, but so you see the way it wouldn't have been devastating to me if I didn't get in because I wasn't tied to it or any of the schools. And I think my kids, I have twins, as a lot of you know, Brennan will get a rejection. And back then it came in the mail, the big envelope or the little envelope, maybe on the same day that Shannon. So we had to navigate all that. And it was like, it's not a reflection of you in any way. And I would say, and I know this again is a catchphrase, but it truly is a rejection. And there's books written about this, is an opportunity. And there's successful people that could tell you stories all day long about if that didn't happen to me, and you and I have those, you just shared one. That didn't happen to me, I never would be here, right? And you don't see it at the time, and kids don't get it because hopefully most of your kids have not been through a lot of hard things, but there are kids that have. So they've been there, done that, and this could be just another one. But yeah, it's an interesting journey, but you just keep it even keel and make sure it's not in any way an indication of the student. And I will throw out, if you're kind of wrapped up in this, there's a book that Frank Bruni wrote, who's a New York Times columnist. I have it written down because I always forget the title. Where you go is not who you'll be. So if you want some data to back this, the first half of the book, almost too much in my opinion, he tells you about all these successful people that went to Texas A&M, that went here, that went there. Your kids don't have to go to one of these colleges that's super competitive to be successful. And I would also say, if you're not a great parent because your kid went to Princeton, you're a great parent because your kid is healthy and happy, emotionally, physically, moves on with their life, isn't on the dole. You're a great parent. Like you create a happy child who's going to impact the world. That's what matters, not Princeton, my alma mater, any school, honestly. So
That's a good one. That's a great note to end on, Peggy. And I think that is the theme. Because again, I don't want to be too cheesy with like it all works out in the end and blah blah. But I do believe they're good kids. They have some acumen. There's some motivation and compete level there. It is going to work out, right? And
yeah, as long as they stay in the game, and they keep trying to impact the world
exactly.
and leave it a little bit of a better place in their special way, which is part of my toast to my son who just got married. That's what matters. And it doesn't matter where they go to college or what their first job is. They just keep staying in the game and they're they're going to do their thing, right? And at the end of the day, it's not going to matter where they went. It's always part of you. And like to your point, Matt, my buddies from Cornell, my buddies from high school, my buddies from grad school, like I'll have them forever. And that's a wonderful thing. But who you are and what you're achieving, that's really based on you. You know,
Mhm.
it really is.
That's the message. Of course, easier said than done. We appreciate what for those of you that are dealing with that rejection. You know, you got to lean into the pain for a little bit, right? And it does hurt, but this adversity we know is guaranteed. And if it's not coming on college acceptances or rejections, it's coming. And so for those of us that get to or that do experience the rejection with this, we just have to know and reinforce like we are going to be better for it. I mean, that is just a fact. And again, still sucks we didn't get what we want, but guess what? We're going to be better for it. So, all right, Peggy, well, that was good. Hopefully that resonated with some people. And you know, we
Hopefully
will.
some points there help you guys through this piece and being able to coach your child if things don't go exactly the way you're hoping.
That's right. So we'll get back next week, little holiday special, and then on to our New Year's resolutions. But everybody have a great rest of your week. Thank you always for listening, and bye, Peggy.
All right. See ya.
Okay, I'm your host, Matt Carpenter. I was joined, as usual today, by the fairy godmother of financial aid, Peggy Keough. As always, this has been edited and produced by Eileen Campbell. We hope you enjoyed it. Please like us, please follow us, please share us. And if you want to work with anybody on our team on a one-on-one basis or upgrade to any of our premium services, make sure you use the coupon code CollegeTry and you get 15% off. Thank you.
I used to